This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs. All of us have experienced distractions during Mass at one time or another. Maybe someone's perfume, a lady with a hat. Perhaps we're just thinking about the upcoming football game or a big project at work or at school. All of these can cause our minds to wander at church. Now imagine how big of a challenge that would be if you had ADHD. Lauren Enriquez is a communications strategist and consultant and owner of Corbella Communications. Her recent article, Three Tips for Participating in Mass with ADHD, has gotten a lot of attention. And I'd like to welcome to Catholic Forum Lauren Enriquez. Lauren, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be with you.
So tell us about yourself and tell us about Corbella Communications. What did I skip in my introduction?
Oh, you got it. I'm a mom of five kids. My husband and I have been married almost 14 years. He's from Peru. We have a intercultural household that's really fun. And we live in Ave Maria, Florida.
How
So
long?
Corbella Communications is a boutique consultancy, and we serve faith-based and pro-life nonprofits for the most part.
Terrific. How long have you been in Ave Maria, Florida?
Well, I went to college here, graduated in 2012. We got married here in 2011 when I was in college. And then we moved to Houston for 12 years and just brought our family back to Ave Maria last summer.
That's interesting. I know this is off topic, but I think you're the first person I've spoken with who lives at Ave Maria. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Oh, sure. Ave Maria is a relatively small town. It's very Catholic, as you can imagine, although we've got quite a bit of faith diversity here as well. It is the home to Ave Maria University, my alma mater, which is an incredible and faithful and pro-life Catholic school university. There's a wonderful K through 12 school here. And the sacraments are really at the center of life in Ave Maria. That is why we came back. There are 67 public masses per week, every week in Ave Maria. That doesn't count the private masses that are surely being said by the many priests who visit. There's confession many times during the week. We've got Eucharistic adoration all the time. It's just very focused on Jesus. And as my husband and I were discerning how to raise our kids, we wanted to raise them with the end in mind, which is God willing heaven. And so what better place to try to get them on up on the right foot than a place where they would have access to the sacraments like
Wow, that sounds like heaven on earth.
that. The closest you could get, probably.
So you've written this article about three tips for participating in Mass with ADHD. For those of us who might not be familiar with it, like what is ADHD?
So ADHD is an attention disorder, and it can manifest in a lot of ways. It can be different for men and women, for children and adults. And I'm not an expert in ADHD, but I and my children are diagnosed with it. So something that we experience firsthand. But the common feature that I think everyone with ADHD would probably say they experience is distractibility. And that is also something that has exploded in the general public, whether or not you're diagnosed with ADHD. Distractibility with social media and with the advent of smartphones has grown exponentially. And so I think it is fitting for us to start thinking about how do we address distractibility in prayer and in Mass now that it is something that is affecting so many people.
So your theory is that we are more distracted because of our fixations with our phones and social media. Is that correct?
Yeah, there, and I'm sure your listeners are familiar with this data, but smartphones and social media algorithms are intentionally designed to draw our focus in many directions as once, because most social media platforms get the bulk of their funding from advertising. Advertising pays more the more eyeballs you have on an ad. So there's been a concerted effort among psychologists and among tech gurus to figure out how do we draw people's attention in one place or another. I won't go into whether that's benevolent or not, but the fact is that it seems to have affected us in a very large way in terms of our ability to focus, and how easily distracted we are by these very intentionally designed apps and devices that are just trying at 24/7 to pull our attention away through all of our senses, through beeping sounds in our ears, through colorful banners popping up everywhere. It's no wonder that we're struggling to pay attention.
So, how did your article, Three Tips for Participating in Mass with ADHD, come about?
Mhm. Well, I found myself trying to find um, things to do that would help me in mass because I get very distracted in mass. And as a writer, I didn't have writing about ADHD on my bingo card this year. I am a writer, but my subject matter expertise is abortion. And so this was a little bit off the beaten path for me, but I thought, well, I've been doing these practices for a while and they seem to really be helping me. Maybe they'll help other people. So it was just a natural progression as a writer to say, let me write these down for people. And sure enough, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people, either saying that they identified with what I wrote or that the tips were helpful to them, or they added their own practices that they use to help themselves pay attention at Mass. So it kind of awakened a conversation that I think people were hungry to have.
So, what are the three tips? We'll give information when we're finished up here about how
Sure.
people can read the article, but give us a little preview. What are those three tips?
Sure. So the three tips that I follow, and again, other people have told me they have their own, but what helps me is sitting up front at Mass. That might sound a little counterintuitive for some people, but for me, removing as much as I can other than Jesus from my field of vision helps me. And so we try to get to Mass a little early, try to find a seat up front. That's not something I did for most of my life. I gravitate toward the back. I'm an introvert. I want to be where you don't see me. But sitting in the front has had a profound effect on my ability to focus on what is going on at Mass because I'm not distracted by someone's beautiful necklace or trying to count how many kids somebody has, which in Ave Maria is always fun. With 5 kids in Ave Maria, I have a small to average size family. So it's always fun to be like, oh, they have 9, they have 11. But I don't get as distracted by that if I'm sitting in the front. Another tip is to read along with the Mass. Now, there's so many apps that you can use to read the readings, but you might even want to read along with the whole Mass. Like you can find the order of the Mass in a lot of the missalettes that are in the pew or in the apps like the Magnificat, Universalis, etc. Reading along just focuses your attention into what you're reading, and that may help you to focus on what's going on in the Mass. And then the third tip that I have, which I say may be the most controversial, but is probably the most helpful to me, and maybe this is because I'm a writer, but it is to journal during Mass, specifically during the homily. So I try to read the readings ahead of time so that in case I do get distracted during the readings at Mass, I know what the priest is talking about when he begins his homily. And then I just try to jot down some bullet points as I listen to him. And having that practice of trying to take notes about what someone's saying just naturally forces you to try to pay attention to what they're saying. And so those are the three tips that have really helped me. But talking to other people again, you know, I've heard people talk about bringing like a little fidget to Mass or like holding onto a rosary or a holy card or something that will ground your attention. It seems to be a common thing for people who experience distractibility.
Those are great, great tips. How about for kids? Do you have any
Mm-hmm.
particular tips? I mean, I don't know if kids would have the discipline. I guess it depends on the age to follow
Yeah.
along in the book.
Well, one thing I think for kids is they're The more you expose them to mass, the more comfortable they seem to get with it. Now, I can't say this is true for my 2-year-old who just wants to run around all the time, but if you can bring your kids to adoration or mass more often than once a week, it seems to help them become comfortable and kind of find a rhythm at mass. So that seems to help. But there are some great aids, and I'm not affiliated with any of these groups or people, but there is a group called Catholic Sprouts that produces things that children can bring to mass to help them follow along. What we use is the Magnificat, so the children's version of the Magnificat, and we bring pens with us, and the kids can read along with the mass if they're old enough to read. But there's also like word searches and crossword puzzles and little comics. So these little pamphlets, they send you one for every single Sunday. And so we always make sure to throw those in the diaper bag on Sundays and let the kids share them during Mass. It seems to help. But I'll be honest with you, the 2-year-old, I spend a lot of the Mass on Sunday walking around outside with him. So sometimes we go to separate Masses so that my husband and I can both have a chance to focus.
My guest today on Catholic Forum is Lauren Enriquez. Her organization is Corbella Communications. She's a communications consultant and strategist. And the article is 3 tips for participating in Mass with ADHD. You mentioned that some of the, probably the major reason why folks have problems focusing during Mass is because of the apps and online and social media and those things. Are there other reasons, do you think?
Well, human nature.
Yeah.
We are a body and soul composite as humans, and that's how God wanted us to be. Um, the spiritual world, the spiritual reality in our fallen world is an invisible reality. And so I think the church does a good job of recognizing this in our liturgy, giving us ways to engage our senses. It says, we'll use incense so that the smell reminds you that you're in a sacred place. We'll use stained glass windows so that your eyes remember that you're in a sacred place. We'll use bells during the consecration so that your ears remember you're in a sacred
Mm-hmm.
space. And we'll move our bodies. We'll sit, we'll stand, we'll kneel to remind ourselves that something sacred is going on, and that's a mercy, in my opinion, from the church to give us those ways to engage our senses during the liturgy. So I like to try to go to the masses where they have incense, for example. But I also like to try to constantly remind myself because for many years, my distractibility was a source of shame for me. I felt like it is a weakness, but I felt like it was something that made me unworthy. And what I had to learn over time is we have such a gentle and merciful God who created us with a body because he wanted us to have a body, knowing that in a fallen world that would cause distraction for us. And constantly turning our attention back to him intentionally, even if it's 100 times during the Mass, is a way of loving him.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't discount that. So even in the struggles that we have, there's an opportunity to grow and to love him more. And he appreciates that.
Very well put. What do you say to parents who might think, gee, my 2-year-old is just too noisy. I'll wait
Mm.
until he's 5 before we go to Mass, or 6, or
Mm.
whatever.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
I first of all, I would say the struggle is real.
Yeah.
Anyone who's trying to tell you that taking a 2-year-old to mass is a cakewalk either has never met a 2-year-old or is lying to you. It is difficult. I think it's one of the opportunities that we have as parents to grow in holiness and patience and to recognize that maybe my calling right now isn't to be 100% plugged into the gospel reading. Maybe my calling right now is not to lose my temper with my 2-year-old or to realize that walking around outside is the best thing that I could be doing right now as a mom. So I would acknowledge that the struggle is real, first of all. Again, exposing them as much as you can to the liturgy and to sacred places, to adoration chapels, go to daily mass when you can. I think this helps them. It might speed up the process of their maturity at mass, but just accepting where you are and again knowing we have a gentle and loving God. He created 2-year-olds to be 2-year-olds, to be rambunctious, to be exploring, to want to touch everything. In my child's case, to want to light every candle in front of Mama Mary. And um, he's not calling you to a life of um, reverent silence in that season of your life, but you'll have a season later on where you can transition more to that, and where your 2-year-old does become a 6-year-old who sits still and listens to the gospel. So hang in there.
And before you know it, the kids will be grown and gone, and you'll be in the
That's right.
pew, you and your husband, and like, I miss the good old days.
Absolutely. That's what I'm told. And now that my oldest is a teenager, I'm starting to realize that that old cliche that it goes by so fast is absolutely true.
Absolutely. So, Lauren, you also, as you mentioned, you do a lot of work in the pro life community. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would, please.
Sure. So I've spent my whole adult career working in the pro-life movement. It's an incredible justice mission. About 1 million children per year that we know of are killed in abortions, and from a really young age, God just put it on my heart that that was the cause for me to go and work in. And it's been the honor of a lifetime to do it. I've worked with a lot of great national and local pro-life organizations, pro-life legislators and policy groups, and the grassroots groups, the grandmothers that show up and pray outside of Planned Parenthood day after day. It is a beautiful, beautiful movement. Where we are now in the abortion landscape in America, we have seen Roe v. Wade overturned, which is incredible, something we didn't know if we would see in our lifetime.
Hmm.
But we're facing the reality that overturning Roe v. Wade didn't mean ending abortion. And so now what the abortion landscape looks like is the majority of abortions taking place are carried out with the abortion pill, which basically starves the child in the womb to death before causing him or her to be expelled in a bathroom. Um, and most of these pills are being ordered through the mail, which means that even in states that outlawed abortion when Roe v. Wade was finally overturned, the abortion rates aren't necessarily changing. So that's the new frontier that we're fighting right now. There's a lot of good work and innovation being done, and there's a lot of good research that's being done to help show women the dangers that the abortion pill poses not only to their children, but to their own health. So I would just ask the prayers of your audience, and I would say if anyone is curious about the pro life movement and hasn't been engaged in it in the past, it is a group of extremely welcoming and normal people. So come get involved. If you're looking for a way to get involved, there are many, many pro life groups, but the 40 Days for Life campaigns are a great way to get your feet wet and learn how to pray for an end to abortion in community.
Do you, well, here in our state, the state of Delaware, our diocese is the state of Delaware and Maryland's Eastern Shore. In
Mm,
Delaware, they recently passed a law that legalizes assisted suicide.
mm.
Maryland hasn't had that yet, but it's probably going to be soon.
I
Um,
think Maryland just defeated it for the eighth time in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
yeah,
correct?
yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds right. And we defeated it about 7 times before
Mm.
we got a new
Wow.
governor and it passed. Um,
Okay.
what do you what can we do as Catholic pro-life people
Mm.
to help fight that that death culture that we
Hmm.
find in so many of our states?
Yeah. At a macro level, we need to make sure the people around us know that they matter, because this is what's at the heart of every attack on human life, whether it's abortion, suicide, euthanasia, assisted suicide. It's that someone becomes convinced that their life or the life of someone else isn't worthy, isn't precious in God's eyes. So, in the case of assisted suicide, often it is suffering, or always it is suffering that's driving someone toward that choice. And unfortunately, many of the stories that I've read of people who have chosen assisted death don't feel the support of the loved ones who are commissioned. It is their vocation to be standing by and loving those who are suffering in their lives. They've been made to feel like a burden. And so I always like to look at what can I actually do? Like maybe I could tell you what the federal government could do or what my state government can do or what the church at a macro level could do, but what can I do? I can make sure that the people in my life know that they matter. I can check in on people that I'm worried about. I can make sure that when someone is suffering with an incurable disease, that I'm checking in on them on a regular basis, seeing if they need food, seeing if they need assistance. And I think if we all took responsibility to ensure that our loved ones knew they mattered, we wouldn't have this problem of assisted death being so appealing that a majority of a legislature passes it and then a governor signs it. It just wouldn't be possible.
Very, very good tips and good reflection on that. So, Lauren, how can we read your article and how can we get more information about your work?
Sure. So my article on 3 tips for going to mass with ADHD is at aletheia.org. That is the Greek word for truth, and it's aletheia.org. If you type ADHD into the search bar there, you would find it. And then you can learn more about my work at laurenenriquez.com.
Very good. Thank you so much. Lauren Enriquez, it was great speaking with you today. We
You
wish
as well.
you and your family many, many blessings in the time to come and enjoy those kids, especially that 2-year old.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.